Hi, this is Dr. Stephen Newhart with Science Based Body, and this is the Economic Fitness Podcast channel. On this channel, we are going to provide you with ways to keep your body and mind in top peak physical condition in an environment of sedentary work environments. It is our perspective that blood flow is equal to cash flow, and if you cut off the blood flow, you cut off the cash flow. We hope you enjoy our information. Hi, thank you for tuning in to Economic Fitness. Once again, I am Dr. Stephen Newhart, and I have a phenomenal guest today. She's actually a good friend of mine. We've known each other about 4 years. She has a bachelor's in environmental science and chemistry. She has her master's in nutrition, and she's now in a program to acquire her PhD in nutrition. So she's taking a lot of additional steps to just increase that level of education. She is the author of 2 books, one which I live by, actually both which I live by, I guess I should say. She has written The Science of Skinny, and she also wrote the Science of Skinny cookbook to go right along with that, because obviously if you're going to tell people this is harmful for you, well, how am I supposed to prepare my food? She's got the answer. She's also the founder of Processed Free America. So I would like to welcome Dee McCaffrey to the Economic Fitness Show. Dee, thank you for joining me today. This is truly a real pleasure.
Thank you, Stephen. It's so great to be on here with you. I'm so excited.
One day you can be here in person. I love the technology for our ability to do this, but one day we can be here in person together as well, and maybe expand on one of the topics that we're going to talk about today. So if you wouldn't mind, Dee, tell us a little bit of your personal backstory. What made you start focusing on this food, applying your degree in chemistry, and then additionally looking into other foods and just kind of figuring out what it's doing to our body and why it's harmful, if you wouldn't mind.
So my backstory starts when I was a child and I started to gain weight then. And then by the time I graduated from high school, I weighed 180 pounds. So I was already at that point obese. My height is 4'10". So I was getting up there to where I was getting to be, close to maybe twice the size that I should be. And I kind of went all throughout my 20s dieting. And oftentimes I say I kind of dieted my way into seemingly permanent obesity because I kept losing weight, but then gaining it all back. I oftentimes say I just did the yo-yo.
Sure,
up, down. And then after a while, I just yo'd because I just kind of kept going up and I couldn't manage it anymore. I couldn't seem to be able to lose. And then in 1992, which was about just about 29 years ago this month, actually, I basically kind of hit a bottom with myself. And I was like, I just cannot live like this anymore. It's crazy. And I am really addicted to sugar. I'm addicted to sugar. I'm addicted to all the refined carbohydrates. I could literally eat an entire 1-pound bag of M&Ms in an evening and more things on top of that. So that was kind of my story. And when I made a decision to change and do something about that, it became pretty clear to me that sugar was the thing that had to go. I mean, I really had to get a handle on that, and I realized that I had to just completely get it out of my life, because what had always been my downfall in the past was I just tried to eat less of sugar and less chips, less, all the refined foods. And it never worked because I was, and it's kind of like trying to quit smoking and only having 1 cigarette a month. I mean, you're still addicted, right? If you're doing that. And the same thing would be of any other substance. So that was kind of what brought me into to understanding about sugar. And at that time, I was in college. I was getting my bachelor's degree in environmental science and chemistry. And I actually got a job working at an environmental testing lab while I was in school. And while I was doing my job, part of what I was doing was I was analyzing water, soil, and air samples for environmental pollutants. And part of what we had to do to the samples, because they would come in, the water samples would come in all gross and dirty and greasy. So we'd have to use degreasers and things to clean them up a little bit before we could actually even put them into our instrumentation to test for other pollutants. And it was a discovery in my job at the lab one night that the degreaser that we use was an ingredient that I noticed was on one of the food products that I ate regularly. And it was just kind of an eye-opener, because I didn't realize that chemical ingredients like that could show up in food. And then that just it sort of changed the course of my whole career. I mean, I continued on in my job as a chemist for 19 more years after I graduated from after I graduated from college. But at that time, I started dipping my toe into nutrition. And I eventually then went back to school. I got a certification in nutrition counseling, diet counseling, and then eventually got my master's in clinical nutrition. And I've always been a strong advocate for removing processed and refined foods from the diet, because they just play havoc with our biochemistry. It's like our bodies are designed to function one way to give us optimal health. And all these chemicals, they just completely do the opposite of that. They take us down.
Exactly. So, and luckily
I have a strong passion for helping people to understand that.
And that's the gift, I think. So many of us actually, we become self-aware at some point. I tell the story about, everybody probably knows what a canker sore is inside your mouth. Mine will become so many, in so many numbers. Like if I continued, and I don't even do it anymore these days because I don't want to deal with this. But when I was younger, if I was eating enough processed food, my mouth would become full of them. And it was the most painful thing. You don't even want to talk, actually, at that point, which think about how that can alter your life. But all of us get some sort of a hint. I had never gained too much external, body fat from it, but that was my sign. Some people gain a lot of weight. Some people get depression. Some people get this, some people get that, but it's presenting itself in so many of us out there. And there's a lot of us that actually go, wait, life isn't supposed to be this way. What can and then we start looking. And luckily, you looked at the actual chemistry. I looked at your book so that I could learn from you in layman's terms what's going on here. And the second that I shift away and pay attention and cut that stuff out, there we go. I don't have canker sores anymore. It's very interesting. And obviously the weight, any inflammation you have goes away. Your body shrinks back down, and then health is just great. Little aches and pains from being an athlete or whatever, even those don't bug you when you don't have anything inflammatory in your system. And Dee, something that I wanted to talk about with you today is I've been doing this channel for about 2 months, and I've got 11 or so done with I'm interviewing CEOs and high functioning business people. Seems to be a point at which in their lives, they all wanted to continue functioning high, and they all say, hey, I had to cut out sugar, okay? So in so many words, can you tell us exactly the harm that this causes? You shifted away from it yourself for a good reason, but what kind of harm could this actually be doing?
So this is a really good question. I think sometimes the place to start with is to first really understand where sugar comes from and how it exists in the natural form, and then look at what happens when it's refined and how it impacts our health. So if we go to the source, which is a whole natural sugar cane, if you were to suck on a piece of sugar cane or even just squeeze the juice out, what you would get in there is, well, one, it's water, because there's a lot of water in there, but the water is full of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber, and about 15% of the nutrients in sugarcane is sucrose, which is a simple carbohydrate. It's what we know of as sugar.
Sure.
And it's what gives it that sweet taste. So when we consume it in the whole form, when we get it in, they break it down in our system, and then we absorb the sugar and all those nutrients into our body. The nutrients become cofactors for how our body handles the sugar. And so the sugar actually at then that point becomes a nutrient that provides energy to the body. Oftentimes some of the carbohydrate also becomes part of the cell membrane, and it just provides us with high functioning cells. All those vitamins and minerals are needed in the biochemical reaction that converts sugar into what we call ATP energy. Mm-hmm. So we get like clean burning fuel in our body, and we get really good energy from that. But when we refine sugar, what we do is we press the juice out of the sugar cane, and then it goes through boiling and filtering, and then all those nutrients are literally just like filtered off and removed from the crystals that form in the liquid, and it's evaporated, then it's bleached, and then it's boiled again, and there's like 3 or 4 more steps that happen after that, to where once it gets to be that like white crystal stuff that we know of as sugar, it's like 99% sucrose.
Yeah.
And basically nothing else. None of the antioxidants, which by the way, the antioxidants have been scientifically proven to show that they actually slow down the absorption of the sugar into the bloodstream. So when you're eating the raw sugar, it's not spiking your blood sugar. And so when you consume this white sugar, it's just that now you have a form of carbohydrate or sugar that's coming into the body without its accompanying nutrients. So the body literally has to pull nutrients from stored where it stores some, which will be in the bones or the tissues,
I see,
in order to try to metabolize that sugar into energy. So it's like putting dirty fuel in the body, and it literally robs you of nutrients rather than providing you with something healthy. And the whole body starts to slow down. The cells become less responsive to the sugar coming in. Sometimes they become resistant. This is what we call insulin resistance,
right?
Where there's so much sugar that it's just too much to deal with. So it's kind of like, doing this, right? Like too much, oh my God. And so the cells just stop responding. Now you have sugar that's building up in the blood. And then that becomes toxic, becomes toxic to the eyes. So you get retinopathies. It becomes toxic to the circulatory system and the lower extremities. You get neuropathies. It becomes toxic to the kidneys. So you get renal issues, diabetes. It just plays a lot of havoc. And even on a more milder scale, it's affecting your brain. Like you get brain fog. You just don't function well. And then when your body gets used to having it, it's just like any other drug in the system. When you try to go off of it, you start to feel withdrawal symptoms, and you feel icky, you feel like you're getting the flu, you get irritable, you get headaches. It just creates a lot of biochemical havoc.
And a lot of us have been there. We've had to, we observed. I think athletes are probably one of the only population that can, let me just say, get away with it, because of the amount of exercise that they're actually completing. Would they be healthier without it? Probably. But they are burning so much sugar, that you even see some athletic populations, you think, wow, that person's eating so much sugar, and still they've not any excess weight gain or this or that. There's not that buildup, I think, of sugar in the system because it's just so much is being used. But again, we don't want to encourage the athletic population to still do that, because then the addiction's still there. You remove the sport, because you'll remove the sport at some point, right? And then all of a sudden, now I'm just addicted to sugar and I'm not doing any exercise anymore, so blah. And, some people think that they can just go to the gym for an hour a day and be okay. I don't think that's not enough either,
No, actually, it's not enough. And in fact, I've had a couple of examples of how that's not the case. Because sugar in and of itself can still create issues. It can create inflammation in the body. It can create higher levels of cholesterol in the body. So even if someone is an athlete, I had a client, he was a marathon runner. He was he had a high powered job. He ran a dental office. and he ran, marathons. He ran miles every day. He was, like really, he felt like he was in really great shape. But he ate a lot of sugar. He said, I felt like I could get away with it. I'd bring
Yeah.
candy and treats into the office, and he ate a lot of them every day. And then one day after a run, he said, I felt something just kind of like on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like a 2. Felt like some little pain in my chest. Went to get checked out. The doctor said, you have blockages, 75 to 85% blockages in 4 arteries, and we need to get you in here for surgery, like ASAP. And he couldn't believe it. He was like, how did this happen? I'm in such great shape because I run. I explained to him, the sugar in your diet is creating buildup plaque in your arteries.
Yes.
Even though you're burning off some, you're probably burning a lot of it for energy, but the rest of it, it's becoming toxic. Mm-hmm. And see, this is what people don't understand. And it's a little unfortunate, I think, that we equate sugar consumption with weight gain only.
Right.
And people feel like if they're not overweight, then it's fine. But we know a lot of thin people who have heart attacks, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We have, a lot of thin people who get cancer. These are some of the other dangers of excess sugar in the diet is, now it's linked to cancers because the cancer cells feed off of sugar. And it's linked to basically, heart disease because it creates high triglycerides, high cholesterol levels, and inflammation of the arteries.
It's
it's not a benign thing.
No, and it's so interesting. So you've got all these CEOs and entrepreneurs out there, and as they continue on with that type of substance, and they're trying to be awake for 14 hours a day and acting and having cognitive function really high and completing big deals and having the same kind of just toughness about them to do all this stuff, they're starting to feel so that's why a lot of them end up cutting that out. Do you know any specifics that happen in the brain to cause brain fog? I mean, I've always associated the bleach that they use in the bleaching process to be a harmful toxin to our body. And if anything harmful is in your body, it could probably destroy a capillary bed, which lowers blood flow, which is going to kill cells. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that could happen. Do you know anything specific about the brain and why this happens?
Well, the brain actually, all the cells in the brain also rely on glucose for energy. It's just like most of the other cells in our body, we need the glucose. So, but when there is an excess, the same thing kind of starts happening in the brain cells as it becomes an overload. We can get a resistance to that. And so then the cells kind of shut down a little bit, and now they're not getting the energy that they need. It's like that dirty fuel. So when the brain cells can't get fed properly, you get this fogginess that goes on. People call it brain fog.
Yeah, that's
really
the term these days you hear.
It's kind of like a depletion of energy, basically.
So your book, The Science of Skinny, it discussed a lot of different foods to avoid. In just, a minute or two each, could you go over a couple more for us so people have this tool to use so they can start trying to identify any other harmful stuff that might be making its way into their diet aside from just sugar?
Well, anything, we look at refined carbohydrates. So, things like anything made with white flour, that's, breads and cereals and different types of pastries, those types of things. And that might seem obvious to people, but I think sometimes people think that those things are okay, pastas. And we can't also discount the gluten-free foods now. So a lot of people equate gluten-free with being healthy, but not necessarily. A lot of the gluten-free products are made from refined white rice flour or potato starch. And these are all still refined carbohydrates.
Sure.
So gluten-free products are one. And then I also look at oils, different types of fats, because that's a whole can of worms in and of itself. That most people are very uneducated about healthy fats versus what healthy versus unhealthy fats. And so the refined cooking oils, things like corn oil, or what we call vegetable oil, which is really just a combination of soybean oil and corn oil and canola oil. So a lot of people think canola oil is a healthy cooking oil when it's far from that. Actually, it's a type of oil that when it's heated to the temperature of cooking, it actually starts to break down. It has certain fat components in it that are very vulnerable to heat and light, and they start breaking down and forming something called free radicals in the oil, which free radicals are when they get into our body, they attack our cell membranes and create damage. So we call that free radical damage.
Okay.
So so canola oil is one of those because it breaks down easily under heat. Even though the marketers tell you that it's the best cooking oil, that's misinformation.
And if you used it without heating it, any better or
Not really, because they use a lot of heat in the pressing
I see.
and the processing of it. So it's
already been
damaged
heated
by the time you get it in the bottle. And then if you take it home and use it for cooking there, you can basically just create more damage.
Sure. And all these things are slowing. We don't even have to look at CEOs and entrepreneurs. I mean, it's just slowing down America. You're seeing tons of chronic disease coming from it. And gosh, I just, I tell everybody that I meet, Dee, to read your book. And I've probably purchased 40 copies of it myself just so I can give it to people. So many of my gym members have it now. And they come back and they are massively enlightened after it. And I know that helps change their life because once they can cut all that junk out, here we go. You start feeling whatever you're desiring. Do I want to be less irritable? Do I want to have more energy? Do I want to be able to focus more at work? All those things start coming because it's that all that bad stuff causes all these downsides to occur. And so it's just amazing. So
one of the things that I say is that basically, when something is going wrong with our health, it's usually one of two things. It's going to be because we're not getting enough of something we need, or we're getting too much of something we don't need.
Yeah.
And so we need to find that homeostasis of bringing our bodies back into balance. Our bodies are designed to be healthy. So when we give them the nutrients and all the ingredients that it needs to be able to do its job, it just naturally goes in the direction of health. We really have to disrupt it in order for it to go in the direction of disease.
And so you were talking earlier about getting your journey of getting off sugar. Hey, I'm not even going to eat a little bit because just like the cigarette, I'm still addicted to it. What was your strategy for just eliminating it?
Well, my first strategy was eliminating the obvious sugar things in my diet. So things like the candy and the cookies and all of that. I mean, that was pretty obvious. I wasn't necessarily aware yet of the hidden sugars that were in things like Cheerios and salad dressings.
Right,
I wasn't aware of that at the time. But I think I made a big inroad with just getting rid of the obvious sugar. And then I started looking at the other sugars, looking at ingredient lists, looking for the words that end in OSE, because those are going to be the added sugars. And so then, really just starting to cut out those things too and go, basically it was going more toward a whole foods diet where I was eating more fruits and vegetables and whole grains rather than anything processed that I would buy in a bag or a package. And, and while that might sound like, oh my God, I bet that takes a lot of time, or that seems so rigid, or it really wasn't. It was really more of like a freedom.
Yeah.
A freedom to experience, amazing energy. And I did release 100 pounds, by the way. That was the other benefit of doing it. I was obese when I started, so I lost 100 pounds and have kept it off.
Of course, yeah.
That was part of it. But, I know that's not everyone's story. But, for a lot of people, that is their story. And, that would be a motivating factor for them.
And now you know exactly what to avoid, so you have control. Yeah. How terrible must it feel to be out of control and not know what's going on, It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's horrible. It's a
Yeah.
horrible feeling to wake up in the morning and kind of with a sense of dread, like I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it past breakfast without eating sugar.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I think it's an all or none. You got to cut it all out. Even those little hidden sugars and, like you said, salad dressings. I posted a salsa the other day. Check this out, though, D. Okay, so I had this green salsa that my wife and I both look at the back of it, and okay, there's nothing crazy in here. Bought it again, and I still had the first bottle. They had changed. They had added like 5 sugars into it on the second round. And I thought, wow, okay, so they're going to have me read it here and trust their product and then sneak it in later. You
They
know?
do that. Food manufacturers have no obligation to inform consumers that when they make changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get used to a certain product and you think, oh, this is a good one. I finally found something that I can eat.
Yeah.
And then and then you kind of stop looking at the label after that. But yeah, you have to check it every now and then.
I know.
Because they do that. They sneak it in, and then you're like, oh
I
man.
I could even I could taste it. That's why I grabbed the old one and I said, "Oh wait, this tastes different now." And I looked, and then I said to my wife, "I said, come here, look at this. This is too much." And then I put it on social media at the time. I don't have any social media anymore, but I was on LinkedIn and I put it on there and just and a few people saw it and said, "Whoa, wow, crazy." But most people just don't care, just because they don't understand. That's why I want them to read your book. But anyway, this has been wonderful. You did me a favor by being here with me today. Is there anything I can do for you? Let me ask you that before we log off.
Well, Stephen, you've done amazing things for me. By the way, I don't know if the listeners know how we kind of hooked up, but I actually met you through some other people that were doing some research with the vibrational plate.
Yep.
And as it turned out, you and I were the ones that stuck.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm actually
because-
still researching vibration. Do you still use your platform?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got it actually under my desk here. I bought, here's what happened. Once I, started working more at desk, I was finding it harder and harder to keep up with, the lack of exercise because of that. So what I did was I got a standing desk and put the plate there so that I could stand on the plate while I'm working. And I just, I'll be on it for like, several hours. And it has been a lifesaver.
In an hour's time. I even tested it with lab equipment. It's 100 calories. If you just stand there, it's 100 calories an hour. So if you happen to be on it for 3 hours in an entire day, you're burning 300 calories, and that matters. Those are.
So I will, I'll get up in the morning and I'll go out. I love to go out for bike rides. I ride my bike for about an hour and a half, and but that's in the morning, and then I come home and it's like then the whole rest of my day is at a desk, a computer. I mean, it's just kind of the nature of the work. I teach online and I see clients virtually, so it's just like you can't help it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I cannot I got to do something.
Right.
There's something I've got to get. There's one thing to move around a little bit at every hour, take a break, do some jumping jacks or jump rope or something, but then you've got all that other time that you're just kind of sitting there. And I was like, I can't sit like this. It's too much. So the plate has really been a wonderful asset in that way. And then I use it other times too. I love to do my crunches on it and do my weights and all that. It's great.
I wish we could have you on class with us some morning.
But on
it's
some
actually
tunes.
it's actually at 5:45, so that means it would be 3:45. You 3:45. Your time is just not going to happen. I don't think.
I don't know if I'm willing to get up for that.
Yeah, nobody does that.
I need sleep too.
Yeah, but anyway, Dee, thank you so much for your time today. I think everybody's going to learn. I learned so much from this talk, and they also have learned about books they can go purchase. I'll always be continuing to tell people, just because you tell the story so much better than I do, and I always want the expert to be the one delivering the information. But thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for your time today, and thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Economic Fitness.